Hey folks, Patrick Brewer here, Zero Emission Vehicle Fleet Advisor for the Clean BC Go Electric Fleet Program. Today we're going to look at the hydrogen side of fleet electrification. And to do that, presenting is Jeff Grant from Zen Energy Solutions. Let's hear what he has to say, shall we?
Hi there, my name is Jeff Grant. I'm a principal at Zen Clean Energy Solutions. We're a boutique consulting firm in Vancouver, British Columbia, very focused on hydrogen and fuel cell technologies. I have been in the hydrogen fuel cell sector for over 20 years. 15 of those years were at Ballard Power Systems, and now the last 5 years have been with Zen Clean Energy Solutions. I'm going to talk to you today about a couple of different topics. One is the hydrogen strategy for Canada, just briefly providing an overview of sort of how hydrogen folds into some of the different activities in the Lower Mainland and British Columbia and nationally. And then I'm going to focus in on fuel cell electric operations of equipment at the Seaports. So I've broken this deck into these two components. So I'll start with an overview of the strategy for Canada. Zen was the lead author in the strategy. We did this for NRCan, and it was released in December 2020 by Ministers O'Regan and Wilkinson. So looking at why hydrogen makes sense in Canada, generally the main drivers to make this transition are environmental. So if you look at the emissions in the country right now, as of 2018, 729 megatons of CO2 emitted. And if you look at where those emissions come from, oil and gas is certainly a big piece at 26%. Transportation is at 25%. And then you have some other categories as well: buildings, waste, heavy industry. Hydrogen offers a great decarbonization potential for some of these hard to abate sectors. So really, if you look at the country and some of our unique advantages, we're rich in feedstocks of hydrogen. We have a lot of different ways to make it, and it will be made a lot of different ways depending on what region you live in. We have a leading innovation and industry position right now. The Lower Mainland has been referred to as Nafion Valley, in that you have some big fuel cell stack developers and some offshoot companies that have been created to support that. There's actually over 1,200 high-skilled jobs in the region related to the fuel cell sector. We have a strong energy sector in Canada, primarily in the oil and gas sector, but that there's a potential to pivot into hydrogen. We have good international collaborations, and with that, energy export channels to market. And we have a head start. We're one of the largest hydrogen producers in the world today, and we have a certain expertise that sort of gives us a leg up on some of the other countries that are also looking at this. And to get into the specifics, if you look at sort of where we're starting, what the baseline is, looking at hydrogen projects across the country. We have quite a few activities going on. We have a light-duty fueling network in the Lower Mainland. We have 4 hydrogen stations that are operational, and another 6 that are coming online over the next year and a half. These are supporting deployments of vehicles from Toyota and Hyundai primarily. Sort of going across the country, you have a large-scale Class 8 truck project in Alberta, demonstrating 65,000 kilogram gross vehicle weight trucks that are operating between Edmonton and Calgary. In Saskatchewan, you have pilot demonstrations of hydrogen produced in situ in wells through a company called Proton. Manitoba, you have a commercial fuel cell electric bus deployment that's in its early stages with Winnipeg Transit. They're trialing both fuel cell and battery electric buses. In Ontario, you have a 2.5 megawatt power to gas project that is currently generating hydrogen at Enbridge, and ultimately we will tie into Enbridge's distribution network to blend hydrogen with natural gas and decarbonize the natural gas that's being used in the system. In Quebec, we have a 20 megawatt hydrogen production facility that Air Liquide has put in, and that is paired with liquefaction systems. So we're starting to see deployment of transportation applications in Quebec, sort of underpinned by that infrastructure. And then finally, in the Maritimes, Zen actually just recently completed a Maritimes hydrogen feasibility study, looking at all the opportunities there. And I think there's going to be some good opportunities, maybe starting at some of the seaports for the deployment of fuel cell electric equipment and hydrogen infrastructure. We did just recently update that Maritimes hydrogen study to include Newfoundland as well. So it's now an Atlantic Canada study. Moving to the next slide, hydrogen production pathways. I won't spend a lot of time here because there's a lot of detail, but generally there are sort of three primary sources for hydrogen. We have clean electricity, so things like hydro, wind, solar. We have fossil fuels, so natural gas, bitumen, coal, which can be reformed through steam methane reforming to crack and release the hydrogen, and then the carbon is then captured, utilized in other applications, or sequestered. So this comes out of the national strategy. In our opinion, we require low carbon intensity hydrogen. So if it's reformed and the CO2 is not captured, we don't think that's suitable for use in the Canadian market. And just a sort of an offshoot of that, in addition to steam methane reforming, there's a new technology known as pyrolysis, which actually generates carbon black from the reforming of natural gas. So rather than getting CO2, you actually get carbon, which can be then used to make tires or in other building construction, things like that. And then finally, there's hydrogen production through biomass. So we at Zen, we look at all of these pathways, and we think that all low carbon intensity pathways need to be pursued to meet 2050 demand in a net zero scenario. So jumping to hydrogen and net zero, we look at these two pieces here, two histograms. There's a 2017 scenario, which is sort of currently our energy consumption, our energy mix in Canada, and you can see there's electricity, natural gas, liquid fossil fuels, biofuels, and others. We see this as converting significantly in the 2050 timeframe, where electrification, we think, is going to grow substantially. Biofuels will grow. We'll see liquid synthetic fuels, so fuels like e-methanol or others that basically use low carbon hydrogen as a feedstock, as a strong contender. And then the use of hydrogen directly, we see making up about 30% of the energy mix in 2050. So we don't see hydrogen as a sort of a silver bullet to basically solve all problems, but we do see it as a significant player in combination with electrification and the use of biofuels and other low carbon energy sources. And this basically will provide 190 megaton of reduction in the CO2 by 2050, which is about 25% of today's total emissions. So the next slide, I'm looking at hydrogen uses. Hydrogen can be used as fuel for transport, power production, can be used as heat for industry and buildings. We talked earlier about blending hydrogen into natural gas and how that can be used. And then finally, it can be used as a feedstock for products and chemicals, so in the production of fertilizer, steel, and other chemicals. So there's quite a few ways that this can sort of be integrated into the network. Finally, on the strategy piece, so when we look at the vision for hydrogen in Canada in 2050, we see fueling networks across the country serving more than 5 million fuel cell vehicles, which, by the way, will be on the light duty side, will be a smaller segment of the passenger vehicle market. We think the passenger vehicle market will be dominated by battery electric technology, but there will be certain duty cycles that will lend themselves to the better energy density that you get with hydrogen and fuel cell technology. We see 20 megatons of hydrogen and 30% of the Canada's energy system. I mentioned that. Up to 50% hydrogen and natural gas pipelines. 190 megatons of CO2 abated, a $50 billion hydrogen sector in terms of revenue, and that's domestic only. We see about another $50 billion potential in export revenue as well, as Asia and the European Union don't have the hydrogen resources that we do here in Canada, and will be looking to import. And then finally, economic growth with more than 350,000 good jobs in the sector. Okay, so I'll jump now into hydrogen equipment for seaports. So first slide here, looking at deployment hubs at ports. If you look at the Canadian market right now, you've got a handful of sort of major ports in Quebec, Saint John, Port of Halifax, Port of Montreal, Vancouver, Prince Rupert are the ones that we looked at. If you look at the tonnage handled through the ports and the resultant emissions, you can see that the Port of Vancouver is about the same size as the next 5 largest Canadian ports combined. So Port of Vancouver is definitely a target area if you want to reduce emissions related to operations at seaports. So why does hydrogen make sense at the seaports? Well, it's a high point emission source for both greenhouse gas and local air pollutants. There's decarbonization benefits and local air quality benefits in terms of NOx and SOx. It's heavily reliant on diesel equipment currently. There is some equipment, so I won't say all equipment, but there's some equipment that has a very demanding duty cycle where, again, the energy density of the hydrogen storage is more suited to that application than battery technology. And of course, there's the fast filling, the fact that you can fuel within a few minutes and get into your next 12-hour shift and handle that entire shift with the fuel you have on board. And that can be drayage trucks, yard trucks, top loaders, things like that. And then, of course, you have multiple applications that can share a common fueling infrastructure, which is important. And the ports are federally regulated, so government can have a strong voice in enacting change at the ports. Looking at fuel cell electric goods movement equipment, just a sort of a quick sample of what we see out in the market today. So this transition from diesel to battery electric and to fuel cell electric equipment is happening around the world. I think if you look at the Port of Los Angeles and the Port of Long Beach, probably the most advanced ports in terms of implementing new technology, zero emissions technology, and that's driven by government support through through funding programs, but also through regulation. So they in California, they have both the carrot and the stick, and that's led to 10 fuel cell electric drayage trucks being operated at the Port of LA and the Port of Long Beach. Those trucks are a partnership between Toyota and PACCAR. PACCAR owns the Kenworth and Peterbilt and other brands. So that's a big project that's going on. Kenworth also developed a drayage truck with Ballard BAE Systems. That's in operation with a group, TTSI, at the Port of Long Beach. At the Port of LA, Ballard BAE Systems and a group called Capacity, who's the OEM, are doing are launching a couple of fuel cell electric yard trucks. So these are going to be delivered in the next couple of months, along with the hydrogen infrastructure. And then finally, we also see there's a group called Nuvera working with Hyster Yale that's doing top loaders. In this case, the Port of Valencia in Spain is demoing these. We're seeing similar systems being deployed also in the Port of Los Angeles. So that's sort of a survey of what's going on globally with some of these systems. If we look at marine vessels as well, so sort of, once we see portside operations converting to hydrogen, there's a good opportunity here for tugs and other marine vessels to also convert. There's a big drive to implement zero emission technology into the shipping sector. The IMO is phasing out GHGs 50% by 2050. Norway is protecting its fjords. These have to be 100% zero emission by 2026. There's a big drive in Norway to deploy equipment. And in Europe, the EMSA is also committed to cutting CO2 by 50% in 2050. So sort of mirroring the IMO regulations. And these are a couple slides I got through Ballard Power Systems. So Ballard is working on, I won't go through each of these, but 5 or 6 different ships, and including two different programs in Norway to offer a zero emissions operation. And again, they're looking at hydrogen because of the duty cycle of the ship, and the ability to carry enough energy to meet the daily requirements. So it's a good fit. And in this case, in Norway, one of the ships is using liquid hydrogen because that's even better energy density. Okay, so just very quickly, hydrogen pathways for marine vessels. This is probably for Plug-in BC not as interesting, but I thought I should share this anyway. But so the key here is using low carbon intensity hydrogen, but that hydrogen can be used in a couple of different ways for the shipping sector. In the previous slide, I talked about liquefied hydrogen, liquefaction, then being fed into being used through a liquid pump and ultimately being fed into a fuel cell engine. But you can also look at a different pathway where that low carbon intensity hydrogen can be used as a feedstock in producing hydrogen-rich liquid fuels. So things like ammonia, synthetic liquid fuels, methanol, and those fuels can then be fed into an internal combustion engine. And in some cases, these new internal combustion engines are being designed to accommodate these different fuel types. So 2 different sort of pathways with hydrogen. We're not sure sort of yet which will be the sort of predominant pathway, but certainly groups like BC Ferries are looking at both and doing modeling and trying to come up with some conclusions. The last couple of slides here, let's talk a little bit about British Columbia. So I talked about the port activity in Los Angeles and in California. What we're seeing here is we Zen are working with a consortium of players to introduce the BCH2 Ports project. This will be focused on some heavy-duty vehicles, so 2 fuel cell electric yard trucks that will be operated by BC Ferries and their container services group. 2 fuel cell electric yard trucks that will be operated by HarborLink at the Tsawwassen Container Examination Facility, and 1 fuel cell electric drayage truck that will be operated by HarborLink at the same facility. And the vehicles are currently under development. The drayage truck will be a Ballard powered vehicle that will be integrated by a group called Hexagon Purus out of Kelowna on a Peterbilt chassis. The yard trucks will be, again, a Ballard fuel cell integrated by Hexagon Purus on a Kalmar Ottawa platform. So a mostly made in BC solution for both of these platforms. And yeah, we expect to make some progress, and we expect that you'll see some announcements shortly as all the funding is completed and contracts signed for this. So that's the vehicle side of the project. I'll just briefly talk about the fueling infrastructure piece of the project. So again, this is located in Tsawwassen, BC. The fueling station will actually be at a Petro-Canada. It's a station owned by Tsawwassen First Nation band members, Setsu Gas. The hydrogen equipment will be owned and operated by HTEC, so they'll sign a site license agreement and be hosted by this group, Setsu Gas. And the great thing about the station is it's going to provide fueling infrastructure for the trucks, but there'll also be a light-duty fueling dispenser that'll be built into this. And so in addition to satisfying this project, it's also providing another node on the hydrogen network in BC, and you can see in that map below, sort of the blue stations are the ones that are in place now and operational. There are 2 Shell and 2 Esso stations, and the orange ones are planned stations that are coming online. So the hydrogen will be generated locally through electrolysis. So it'll be low carbon intensity hydrogen delivered through 450 bar power cubes. And like I said, this will support the project, but it'll also support drivers in Delta and Tsawwassen who have Hyundai or Mirai vehicles and need to fuel. It'll also be a good jumping off point for those traveling to Vancouver Island. So you'll have a station at Tsawwassen, and you'll have another station that's currently operational in Saanich as well. So that's it for the slide deck. I appreciate the opportunity to present, and yeah, if you have any questions, we'll be connecting directly. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff. Some pretty exciting things coming down the pipeline there. Shout out to the audience now. If you want to suggest topics for future videos, or your organization wants to be featured in one of these videos, please let me know. And please let me know if you are interested in applying for the Clean BC Go Electric Fleet rebates. You can reach out to me at fleets@pluginbc.ca. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day. Cheers.